I got myself some loops.
We are preparing to live stream the webinar now.
Or jewelers, that extra set of magnification. So
Oh, yeah.
when I'm working on something real small on the G or a little tight space, I can put a little wire.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Trying to tie on like a size 22 fly. It's just,
Oh, you definitely, with what you do when you're tying flies,
yeah,
you should go online and Amazon and get pretty cheap.
they're just called loops.
Loops, Loupes.
Brenda, can you hear us and are you able to speak?
That's not it. There's nothing down there. So.
I can hear you.
Perfect. Alrighty.
Can you hear Phil?
I can hear Phil.
Okay, perfect.
I said it's this big.
It probably goes right directly into the computer that's running it. So maybe this is what we're using now.
We having some technical difficulties.
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, I would think this would probably connect.
Brenda said she can hear Phil, but I don't know if we, I don't know
Can
if
you
we
hear
can.
us, Brenda?
Yes, I can hear you.
There you are.
Yes, we're just working out the microphone. Great. Well, welcome everybody. It looks like this is who we've got. I think Chris is joining in the car. As they're driving down.
I have another phone participant
That could be Chris.
I can allow to talk.
Yep.
Does that work?
Yeah, says yeah. Okay. I didn't even grab an agenda, but I know today's, I'll just scan over this real quick. So let's go ahead and start. Chris is gonna give us the.
Sure. I'll do. I don't know, which is first, prayer or pledge?
Prayer.
Okay, we'll do. Our dear Father in heaven, we are grateful to be able to live in a land where we have the freedoms that we do, and thankful for the chance we have to work as a community to improve the welfare of those, of our neighbors and friends, and to be able to serve the needs of this community. We pray for thy blessing this day. Watch over those who are in harm's way for whatever reason, to be protected, and bless us to have thy spirit and peace with us this day, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, I'd like to start with asking, did any, well, of course everybody did, and Phil did, were you able to listen into the city council meeting and the discussion?
No, I work at.
Well, I would like to maybe suggest that at the next council meeting, we maybe formalize our suggestions a little bit. And either me or Phil or someone can stand up and give the budget committee suggestions, maybe in a little bit of a more formal manner than just in the discussions. What do you think about that, Phil?
I agree. I think it will give some formality as necessary, but I think it tips the hat related to the work that the committee is doing, and that the committee members are doing, that when we have suggestions that come out of the meeting, that we have a not kind of Chris did a really good job in the last meeting of kind of as the meeting went along, we're, throwing in comments here and there that were coming from the committee. I just, I like the formality of having one of the committee members. And I think it should be a committee member, get up and take a moment and say, okay, here are the suggestions that came from the committee regarding this section of the budget.
I agree, that's what I felt. I mean, the
Just kind of a bullet
discussion,
point
the
presentation.
discussion was nice, but I don't think we need to take up too much time, but I think that it would be a little bit more, effective this is what the budget committee, these are our recommendations,
Yeah.
just really quick,
But
so.
I don't think we need a recitation of the why behind the
No.
recommendations that are coming from the committee, but more, we could have Chris stand up there and just say, you know what, this is what the committee said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and
Yes.
7.
Yes.
And we'd love for you, here's your copy, we'd love for you to consider these things as you
As the
consider the budget.
discussion, I think, I agree with that. As I was listening to the discussion, I just felt that would, I think that the budget committee, that would be a way to move forward. So I'd like to see that. So I'll talk to John and Chris and just make sure that maybe that can be added to the agenda as just a quick at the beginning. However, we'll do that. And then at the end of this meeting, we can formalize what we want to recommend and make them very quick and fast, and then we can decide who's going to present them. We'll move forward that way.
Agreed.
All right.
See, we have 3 committee members here, all in favor of Chris giving.
And Brenda,
This,
what
and
do you
Brenda,
think?
and this Chris being our presenter, raise your hand. Brenda, you raising your hand? There we
I'm
go.
raising my hand.
Okay, 3-1, Chris, you're our presenter.
Can I
Like
vote
somebody
against
just said
that?
he's
Oh,
got
sure
work
you
at
can.
night.
You're still outvoted.
Maybe it could be different people each time though, not just one.
Yes,
Yes.
okay. We'll finalize that when we're doing our recommendations at the end
And
of
I'll
the
have to
meeting.
arrange to make sure my people have to do my job. That's good.
We just
That's a
have,
good
we'd
excuse to not have to work at least one night.
like to volunteer you how to,
Understand that works.
All right, and so next we're just gonna move on to presentations.
Perfect. I think I'm gonna get this started. Or with that, Jim?
Yeah,
Oh, we don't have anything on the screen today.
we don't have,
No, I know, I was gonna say,
Oh, shoot, I didn't print off my copy.
I didn't see that. I wonder if, could Ryan print us off a couple? Real
I
quick?
don't know how much here.
Sorry, guys. You're okay.
Here.
Are you prepared over there? You
I have
yours
one
off?
copy, I'll go get.
I'll go.
I'll grab one of mine.
Couple
You have
of
all
them.
the
We can-
departments that we're discussing or just your?
I just, I had the police community service. More. Please more.
We're starting with parks.
Is that everybody, Jamie?
Where's street?
I feel like I can try to do it. Computer, but-
So I'm gonna start with parks. We'll just kind of go through it, like we did last time we were here. I'll go through any of like the major changes. If it's not a major change, I'll just kind of mention it and we'll just keep moving on. Just like we talked about last time, uniform allowance has gone up just a little bit, mostly because the cost of boots and those kind of, and some of our pants and stuff have just went up pretty drastically. Most of it's in our safety boots. We used to be able to get our safety boots for around $100, and we can't find a good safety boot for $100 anywhere now. So that's where that one's went up. Subscriptions and memberships has stayed the same at the $3,000 mark. Some of the subscriptions that they have are for playground memberships. That's to make sure that we are certified in, inspecting playgrounds, from their chips to their Boweries to the playgrounds themselves, slides, those kind of things. Other certifications are arborist. We've got one guy that's really close to completing his arborist, and we will have back to having a city arborist here in the city. And then there's some other registrations and certifications to be part of, Tree City USA, other things like that. So, but that number is staying the same. Public notices, we didn't change. Travel and training has increased some. This is due to, since we switched in the last 2 years, that crew is almost completely new. We've brought some experience over, but a lot of people came over to the parks maintenance crew. We're pretty new, and so a lot of it is just getting them with their certifications, getting them trained, having them go to classes and different things. And so we've increased that one just a little bit there. The office supplies stayed the same. The motor pool adjustment is actually went up a little bit. This is just,
So it's tied to the equipment that's coming out of motor pool for like the excavator and the dump truck.
so in a lot of cases, those pieces of equipment, now that they're in public works, they have the ability to utilize a lot more equipment than they ever used to be able to. With that, it's some of the costs have kind of went up as far as motor pool goes in that fund. Fuel parks are staying the same. Computer services, there's basically two softwares we use. There's one that's called Sports Sites. That is where all of our recreation is through. Any reservations, those kind of things are through Sports Sites. And then our irrigation software, that is just to talk to all of our irrigations in all of our parks. We can do that all mobilely. We can turn off, if we have a major rain event, we can turn off all of our parks.
So question, how do you control, I mean, is that off of a cell or?
Yep, so it has a cell chip in them. Some of them aren't on cellular chips, some of them, we have Wi-Fi, or like this building here, Public Works. Some of the other buildings actually have internet to them, and so then at that point, we're just paying for the subscription of that part. But there's other ones that have an actual yearly fee because they have a cellular chip that we can.
No, it's much more efficient than putting an IP address in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just curious. But yeah.
Yep.
I just, have you ever had any problems with security people,
Logging on or anything like that?
yeah,
No, we
changing your zones for you?
we haven't.
Lucky.
Yes.
I'm just gonna warn you,
It could
it's a
happen.
new thing.
Yeah. So great.
I work for a bank and they try to steal anything, including irrigation controls.
Okay, well, thank you.
So if it's not if it's not encrypted, I suggest you think about that for the future.
Okay, and I think it isn't somewhat encrypted just because it's through their software. Like, we have to go in, and I know they make us change passwords and different things, so it probably is somewhat secure. I don't know how, but
Keep going, sorry.
okay. The equipment maintenance, that's just the regular repairs to, trimmers, mowers, chainsaws, that kind of stuff. That's all staying the same. Building maintenance is also staying the same. That's all of the maintenance we have to do on all of our bathrooms, galleries, playgrounds, those kind of things. That's all staying the same. Telephones have went up just a little bit. But this was one of them we didn't. Is this, because we were moving garbage over, because this is phones and utilities?
It is, but it's the trash pickup for the parks, not necessarily for the building, so that's in building maintenance, so
Okay.
and then, because they use some of those big roll-offs.
The big roll-off dumpsters and those kind of things, yeah. Okay. So I don't know if that was just something we've never had in this one.
It was never like listed out, broken out,
Okay,
and so now we're
okay.
doing it.
Perfect. So that's where the utility fees went up.
What are you doing now, Mark?
Parks, yep.
Look at you and fast, thanks.
Thank you, Chief.
Also, I have my.
I now know my
Dentist,
retirement job.
yeah, so
Your copy man?
Yeah.
Pineview water assessment, that is staying the same. We talked to Pineview, we're not, getting an increase there. That's just for the water we use in the parks. Field maintenance, that one is just going up.
Phil's got a question. Comment.
Have you heard, on the Pineview Water, have you heard anything from Pineview about the state push to meter secondary water use?
Absolutely.
So, and what do you anticipate, if you have an inkling, you may not have an inkling at all, that will do to, once they actually know how much water we're using and we go to, from what I understand, initially, it'll just be a meter where we're just tracking.
Correct.
But you know that once the meter's there, will eventually be to a usage pay. The more you use, the more you pay.
Absolutely.
Do you think that, well, I guess that's kind of, do you think that do you think we'll be surprised by the amount of water that we use?
Yes and no. I think we will be in the acre feet that we are allotted,
Okay,
but I do think, I think it's, anybody says, 30,000 gallons or 50,000 gallons, and it's kind of wrenching like, whoa, wait
Yeah.
a second. But I do think we're gonna be working inside of the acre feet that we have on there. But as far as a price, they are so they're saying that they want to have the meters in by 27.
right.
And then they want to be able to watch those meters for 2 years to give us, or to give themselves an idea of how much they're even going to charge for it. So we're probably not even looking at that part of it till 2030, probably.
Not something we have to worry about today, man.
Correct. But it is something that will be coming down the
Yeah.
line. Okay.
I'll just throw one comment. I have a friend in West Haven that they did the transition period. And now if he waters, he gets notified within an hour, you've consumed your weekly allotment within an hour. And they will shut you off. They actually will warn him one time before they shut off his water.
Really?
Wow.
It is pretty rabid.
Yeah,
One morning.
that's wild.
Wow. So it sounds like people are using more water than they thought they were using. Wow.
So if it's 100-degree day, he says, whatever, it's that you get that amount that you can buy. And they tell you you can only water, twice a week, and you get two water cycles in this amount each time, and then they warn you.
Interesting.
That's crazy.
So that's Weaver Basin direct.
I have a question from Chris Pollock. He'd like to know, the Barkers pay for the water use in the fields.
The irrigation for the alfalfa.
That's what I thought, so. They asked if I would
That's
ask
part of
that.
the contractual agreement for them to farm it while it's not developed. As I remember.
I thought so too. That was something I looked at some point, but I'm just passing on the question.
Perfect.
Came through.
So now I'm on 1064-420, field maintenance. You can see that one's went up a couple $1,000. That's mostly to this, it's mostly for this coming up here that we had so much flooding in some of those parks last year where they were underwater for so long last year that it's just, we've already basically maxed out all of our money this year, trying to get them ready. And we figure it's probably gonna take a full another year to get the fields back to the condition where they were before letting them sit underwater for 4 months. So that's where you're seeing some of that increased cost that, it might be something that will come down after for next year, but that's kind of where the top dressing and some of those things are. It's just because we had so many parks underwater last year. Trail maintenance is staying the same. Chemicals, we're staying the same there as well. Feel like we're in a good place there. Irrigation supplies, that was one that we have already hit our budget this year already. And we're just getting into spring and we're just barely turning sprinklers on, so this is one of them that we've got lots of repairs that we need to get done.
And that same story is field maintenance, just a lot of catch-up work and
Yes.
stuff that,
Like we couldn't work on it when they were underwater, because there was some damages there, and so getting that up and going. Department supplies is staying the same. Tree removal is all staying the same. Graffiti is going up. That is something that we've just recently, we're starting to get quite a bit of problems with graffiti, especially at the skate park and some other places, to the point where, I mean, they were talking about like, do we fence off the skate park and try to get it under control for a minute? That's one of them. And then just some of the parks we're seeing some bad vandalism. This year it's been like some big things where they're breaking, the toilets off the walls and those kind of things. And so we've been replacing them with actual like stainless toilets. A lot of them are vandal proof, as much as you can be vandal proof. So that's where some of the extra costs are coming from. Playground maintenance is staying the same. Restroom renovations staying the same. The honey buckets, we don't anticipate going up anymore there. Same with the rental equipment, holiday decorations the same way. Services not classified, that's just some of the drug testing and different things that we do with our seasonal workers. Credit card fees, and then small equipment is all staying the same as well. And these are just a few of the things that, so they have a mark here on capital, they actually really go into fleets capital, but they just kind of wanted to talk about, their stuff here. One of them is a tractor. We've had a lot of problems with the tractor we have. This is not a net,
yeah, I was gonna say, it's not, I don't believe that it's, I can't remember, honestly, I can't remember if it's in the budget, but I didn't want to remove it because it's still an item we still need, but I don't believe it's in this year's budget.
Okay. Yeah, and so it's one of those ones that we kind of wanted to talk about, but so you can see that there. The direct collect mower, that's something we have to have for certain parks. For instance, we have to collect all of our grass and haul it off per the health department, those kind of things. We don't want grass everywhere around the pools and stuff. The big aerator is actually pulled by the tractor, so that is one of them. The Santa house, we're expecting to get that all in donations. Donations from Lindy Bess. The snow removal equipment, that's just a walk behind blower that it's kind of the one I talked about the last time we were here with stormwater too. You actually get on this piece of equipment. It's built for sidewalks, so it's inside of that 4 feet. Doesn't tear up the grass and those kind of things, but would be able to do a lot faster job than just pushing blowers, all over the complexes that we have that the parks take care of. So,
Is that one of the stand-on?
It is. They're really cool. So they really do a good job. It's got a built-on blower that you can adjust and different things, and so they've been really good. Any questions on that?
Waiting to be recognized by the chair.
I appreciate that. And generally, I think we do really well.
Thank you.
there is discussion floating around about hiring a Parks and Rec director. And the question that I have surrounding that is, how do you feel? I mean, what was it? 3 years ago that we moved parks under Public Works?
2 years.
2 years ago, so we're in our third year now.
This will be our
Yeah.
second full season.
As I say, I think it's
Second
August.
full season, okay. So after the first full season, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best thing we could have ever done in the history of mankind in budgeting. 1 being.
10, 10, 10.
Thank you, Mayor. What? Oh, my goodness sakes. 1 being the worst thing that we could have done. Where would you put it?
I think it's worked very well. I think,
8,
8.
9, 7.3.
I would
10.
go
10.
10, 10, 10. No, I think it's worked very well. I think that there's an aspect to it that they're able to utilize the public works staff, and the public works staff is able to utilize the park staff, and so they've been able to collaborate. A lot of things that they do are on the same scale or in the same places at the same time, and so we've been able to utilize those, the workers in both situations. And so, yeah, I think it's been a very good thing. I think they're very happy over at Public Works. I think that they, from a morale standpoint, I think they're very happy. So, yeah, I think it's been a really good thing.
So you feel like there were, what's the word I'm looking for? Sorry, my brain is, deliverables that we anticipated, that we envisioned, I won't say anticipated, that we envisioned would come about. Do you feel like those?
I think they've exceeded those.
You think that it's even better than what we had?
Yeah.
Had imagined when we had that discussion and made that change?
Yep.
Okay.
So I have a question based on that.
You call on yourself, please.
Do you see a benefit to hiring a Parks and Rec director? Like, what would that?
I guess it would put them all back under the same umbrella again. I mean, because the pool is.
Is that a benefit? I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious to know, like, okay, so would there be a benefit to hiring someone? I mean, from my perspective, it seems to be working well, and having everyone working together, kind of doing the same thing makes sense.
Yeah, and most of what I can speak about is on the maintenance side, right?
On the park side.
Because that's where we brought all the guys over. So, from the Justin side, or from Becca's standpoint, from rec and aquatics, I can't speak for them. But I mean, that would be the only thing I think you could say that, hey, you'd be bringing those 3 things back under the same umbrella. But I think we've done a really good job. I know Bryce and his team have done a really good job on going out and we're going to be implementing a new software. We talked about that a little bit, where we're going to be implementing a new software for reservations and those kind of things for our parks and our fields and all of our things that way. So even though we're not in the same places, I think we're able to, with technology and those kind of things, we're able to still be able to utilize each other all the time and bounce back and forth. So like I said, I think it's been a really good thing. I think the crews are all very happy, I think, from everything I hear. So.
Great. That was all I wanted to know. You saw a benefit.
Yeah, I do. I think it's been really good. I think, and I think if you just look at the 2 staffs, we've taken 3 of the guys in parks and they've actually taken jobs inside of Public Works. And we have the director or the supervisor. I mean, he was in water and one of our inspectors, and now he's in part, like, so, like, we're so intertwined now that like you couldn't even tell one from another anyways, so. So I think I think that shows how good it's worked. You could even tell the difference between parks and Public Works maintenance now anyway. Okay, streets, you guys got street bids?
Should have,
One,
should
right?
have 5 copies there, Dave.
So in streets, you can see the uniform allowance didn't go up as much, mostly because my allowance comes out of here and I don't get the boots that some of the guys get and those kind of things, so you didn't see like a huge increase. Travel and training, it is actually decreased. A big part of this is because Casey Hunsaker was our street supervisor before Bowen. Casey had a dual role where he was an emergency manager as well. And so a lot of his certifications and travel and training were built into streets. Now they are not. They've kind of moved with him. And so that's where you can see that that's went down a little bit. The office supplies are staying the same. Motor pool has actually went down a little bit. You'll see that motor pool number fluctuate. It kind of follows different years, and so we didn't have as much maintenance, and then we didn't buy a snowplow last year, so you kind of see that number changed a little bit. Fuel is staying the same. Computer services, that's all staying the same. You can see some of the software we use is a lot like the other departments in Public Works, where you have iWorks, TextMyGov, Esri is our GIS software, and then there's our GIS, the units themselves. You got safety equipment. Some of this is just updating some of our safety equipment inside of Public Works. So all of our safety equipment, he is kind of our safety coordinator, Bowen. And so you can see we've got vests, hard hats, those kind of things kind of come through here. Safety training, again, that's where we do all of our safety training through, is this department. You can see that we're going to keep that the same as well. Telephones went up just a little bit just because we're buying phones this year. This is the year that we buy phones, so you can see the increase for that. 290, that one is increasing. This is something that we wanted to bring to the group and council. We wanted to start putting in place on, we're always putting in new streetlights and new subdivisions, and we put, and we replace the streetlights that we have. But there's always every once in a while when we get a call, it's like, hey, this intersection is just dangerous. It feels dark, and and so we wanted to start implementing some money to where we could do 2 to 3 streetlights a year, just in different intersections, places that we find that are trouble spots. I know that this year Bowen is looking to do it at 2600 in Fruitland. That's one where you kind of pull up to the intersection at night and it kind of is just dark and a little off. And so that's where one of them he wanted to do. And then the other one was on Pleasant View Drive near, it's kind of between Cherry Villas and the Pleasant View border. That area is just really dark there. We actually have a crosswalk there from the trail to the sidewalks, that there's an actual crosswalk, and it's just pretty dark right there. And so that was another one that we wanted to put in place. So that's what that increase is. The $15,000 increase was just to start implementing that. Engineering costs staying the same. Street maintenance, that's just going up just because the cost of street maintenance is just skyrocketing. Like And then we just had, because of how much moisture and rain and different things we've had, and groundwater that we've had, we're starting to see so much ground shift that we have probably got more potholes in the last 2 years than we've had in the last 10 years. And so you're just seeing an increase there, to try to keep up with the temporary maintenance, as far as the roads go. Parking lot maintenance, that is just staying the same. You got sidewalk repairs, again, staying the same. We're kind of staying and working inside those budgets. We feel pretty good about those. The safe sidewalk, the increase there is just trying to focus on some of the ADA stuff that we have. Especially around our parks, some of the parks that we have are in older parts of town where ADA wasn't a necessity, and now it's something that we need to really focus on and do a better job with. So that's what that extra 10,000 is just trying to put some focus on some ADA ramps that we can put in place for around some of our parks and on our ways to schools. Department supplies just went up just a little bit, again, just cost of things. Snowplow, we've kept that at the same. Street signs, this has went up. A lot of this is the wayfinding sign, so for bike travel, different things. I wish I could remember the number of signs, but it was a big number of signs that the county was trying to get us to implement this wayfinding, where it's safe bike traveling and different things. I want to say it was like over 50 signs that we want to be putting out in the city and different striping that we want to do. So that's where most of the increased cost to street signs is just put into that.
Question.
Yeah.
Just curious, as you're putting, like you're talking about, are these gonna be like signs through parks, parkways, those kinds of signs too?
Yes.
Are we looking at like a city design that is specific to North Ogden?
Yeah, and Scott has been the one that's helped like kind of guide that for us. He's been working with them quite a bit as far as like not only putting maps together, but also like putting like how or where we're gonna put the signage and how we're gonna like, show that this is a trail and not just a
Just a
sidewalk
trail,
that goes
yeah.
to somewhere, right? And so I think that they've been trying to work that through, but most of that has been going through Scott. So I don't know. I don't have a ton of information besides that this is kind of where we put it in our
I
budget.
think that would be really cool,
Yeah.
beneficial, just, as we're getting more walking trails and things like that.
Yeah.
In the city. Kind of our own little, just identifiable look.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, at one time they talked about doing all kinds of different things like stamping the concrete in a certain way so that we can identify it as a trail, or coloring the concrete in a different way because could identify as a trail.
Is the Parks and Trails Committee still, I know that we have a resident one, have you thought, are they working at all with ideas? Sarah Lansing I just think she's so smart and involved with parks. She does a lot of research.
Yeah.
I just think she's a great resource.
And I believe Scott's
that
reached
kind of
out to
thing.
her with that, but yeah, I'd have to follow up with Scott on that to know.
Cool.
Paint supplies stay the same. Services not classified again, a lot of our drug testing, and then all of our on-call services, which we have multiple on-call services. They all go through this. And then we've got small equipment. Same thing. It went down a little bit. Most of this is just the 2 new computers that need to go in that department. So there's streets. Any questions there?
Yeah, I'm sorry, we can't raise our hand here in the car, me and Pulver.
Yeah.
I mean, Pulver has been raising his hand in the back seat, but I told him it's not doing him any good.
If he'll text me, I can ask. I'm trying to watch.
And here's the question I think we'd like to have the committee who represents the citizens before we get too far down the road. Should our recreation program be all self-funded? should it cover all the costs? Right now, we believe it covers everything but the recreation director's salary. You know, we're increasing, the water fees, sewer fees, aquatic center. I surely don't want to price people out of the market, but I think of the council, it would be good to get a recommendation from you folks who represent the citizens on how that should be handled.
Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
I think that would be, we have a golden opportunity to use flash vote. Right, we've paid for the subscription, we've only used one survey. And I think that would be a great opportunity for us to put together a survey that could go out to, I'm sure we would get multiple hundreds of people participating. And I think, Mayor, that's a great question to ask, and we can get a pretty good pulse on the city if council would be willing to push out that survey.
And I think part of the question on there of the surveyed participants is, do you have family members that participate in recreation? Because, as you know, nobody generally votes to increase fees, but the fact is taxpayers are picking up probably about $80,000 right now, I'd assume. So it'd be nice to have a breakdown if there are people who participate or people who don't, because I think you know, the thought process would be totally different on both of them. But I like the idea of doing a flash survey.
We could have that up, we'd have to talk to John, but I think we could probably have that up and out within 10 days, easy.
I know he's preparing two others that council was asked about recently too. But yeah, I think that's something that we could definitely get together quickly.
I see that as huge, because that could have a huge financial impact on the city if it's determined that the majority of citizens want some level of subsidy of recreation, or the opposite. At least we'll give council information
For sure.
on kind of what the heartbeat is out there.
You know what? One thing I think too, and I don't know if we could survey on this or not. You know, we surely don't want to price people out of the market. It's a good thing for kids, but you know, if we raise the fees to cover it and a little bit more, could we provide some scholarships for needy families with certain qualifications to meet, you know, the criteria to be considered for that? Because you know, there's a lot of kids that I think would like to play, but in today's world may not be able to, or if we could get donations to create a scholarship fund or something. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Would be a question that you could ask in there, even, you know, like, you know, if you didn't have kids who are playing, is that something you would ever donate to, that, you know, we did go to, I don't know how to word it exactly, but that would be a question you could ask, because you could find out if that's also something people would be interested in.
You know, when we file our taxes, we have that opt-in donation for political fundraising, right? That is nonpartisan, at least that's the intent, that you can donate to a general fund that is from which political candidates can raise some funds. Maybe there's an opt-in type thing that we could do in North Ogden, where those that are so inclined could check a box on their utility bill and say, yeah, you know what, throw in an extra $1 on this month's utility bill or monthly, and each year we have them re-opt in. Where there is a fund that's coming from those who are inclined to donate to that, to the tune of maybe $1 a month, $12 a year. You know, if we had a couple
options.
If we had a couple thousand people that were donating, you know, 10, $12 a year towards those kids that can't necessarily afford the recreation that they would benefit from. I think that would be a good thing. I think also in the recreation discussion, we have to be sure that we're fair and we discuss all forms of recreation within the city. And that includes the senior center. I think like many of the recreation programs, there's benefit to be had for the seniors. The question is, I mean, we just need to have that honest discussion that if we're going to talk about subsidizing recreation in the city, that needs to include all forms of recreation. And in my mind, that also includes the senior center. And should there be a fee for seniors to participate in the senior center, just like we do with kids participating in rec programs in the city?
Hey, Phil, Chairman Casey,
Yes,
I'm sorry, you're breaking up. We can't hear you.
most people like that. They can't hear me. So anyway, just an update on the senior center situation so you know where that's at as part of the budgeting process. Our funding will be increased this year. And 1 year from now, the county has made the decision, whether it changes or not, they're going to go to 3 senior centers in the county. They'll be, they've identified as Northview as one of them, Ogden is one of them, and then they'll have one out south, and that'll have to be determined between Roy, Riverdale, and Washington Terrace. But then they will fund 3 centers. And at that point in time, there'll probably be a fee involved for those outside of the cities that are providing the building. So just so you're aware of that, that problem may somewhat be solved on its own. Just wanted you to have an update on where they're at. But we've been receiving, I think, 44,000. This year we'll get 59,000, and then going forward, when they have 3, we'll probably get 80-something thousand. So our subsidy would probably be maintaining the building, but if we charge people outside the county or outside the city, similar to what we're doing with Pleasant View, there may not be a subsidy. So just
Right.
a heads up on that.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mayor. That's a great update.
You guys ready for me to go in the motor pool?
Let's go Zoom.
Okay, motor pool, so same thing, closing rounds just a tiny bit. Subscriptions and memberships, that is the big increase there, the $700 increase there is just from our scan tool. So that identifies problems and different things when we have any issues with our vehicle, they can actually plug into the computer system in the computer or into the vehicle's computer and troubleshoot some of those issues. So that the subscription has went up almost doubled, or it did double. So the building maintenance, this one's just went up just from
The AC recovery.
so yeah, that AC recovery system that we have there. So that is the increase, right?
Mhm.
Yep. The travel and training has went up just a little bit. This is just because we just got a new mechanic. It's putting him through training and
Question.
absolutely.
So are you self-maintaining your HVAC systems and contracting that out? Is what I,
Some, yes. So some are under warranty still, obviously with like the new police building, that's all under warranty. But then there are the other buildings that are older, that we are able to do ourselves, like the senior center, parks building, public works, so.
I'm okay with the cost of the equipment if you're self-maintaining, because I'll just tell you, I replaced mine last year. Cow.
Yeah.
If you yeah, $20,000 to replace your HVAC.
Yeah. So, And we're doing a lot more building maintenance in-house that way, so.
It's gotten crazy.
Vehicle maintenance has stayed the same, fuel parts, that one has went up mostly because of
Just the cost
just the
is
cost of
going up.
things.
Mhm.
Telephones are went up just because we're adding a cell phone on that one this year. Department supplies are staying the same, depreciation. Small equipment. These ones are, again, some cooling, or this is a coolant exchange. This is kind of coming from the state. It's new, or it's equipment that we need to be using that we haven't previously had, or they've changed the rules as far as some of the stuff we have to do inside the shop. The bead sealer, that is just a safety thing. That's making sure that when the guys are changing tires and doing different things, that we are doing it in the safest way possible. So that's where you've seen that cost increase. Most of it's either something that has came down from the state, or it's a safety thing that to make sure that we're, taking care of our guys when using equipment. The equipment leases, they went up. A few of the things that we are adding this year to the lease program. One of the big ones is the loader. We've always owned our own loaders. This is something that if we sold our loader and then went into a lease, it would save us money, because we wouldn't have to go out and buy a $300,000 loader. And then
And new snowplow. Ask for first new snowplow.
And then asking for the new snowplow in there, that's another big part. We would be doing a 6-year lease on that. So that's kind of right there. Then going into capital equipment. So we obviously have the exchange program, the vehicle exchange program. It's going good. This year is probably the first year we've had to sell as many trucks as we did ourselves. That's just because the used market was a little saturated on the dealer end. There was just so many cars that kind of sat because production took forever to take off after COVID, and then they had a bunch of you had the 22s and 23s that there was so many that came in without chips and different things. And so now from the dealer's end, who we used to give all of our cars back to, their end is a little saturated on that part of it. But we didn't have any problem selling our vehicles ourselves. Like we've sold 15 to date, and I think we would put them on KSL for 3 days. We had a couple dealers, small dealers, one in Utah County and one in Salt Lake, that came up and bought multiple vehicles from us. So we felt like we were priced right. We were still getting all the money back to keep the program going. We were getting more money back than what we were going to pay this year. So program's still working really good. We just had to do a little more work this year. And we don't anticipate that having to go forward like that. We don't feel like the market will be like that always. It's just something we had to do this year. So that's been good. The parks mower rotation, that's something we've done for years, where we rotate 2 mowers. We do one in June and one in July, so it feels like you're rotating 2 mowers in 2 different years, but they're kind of putting them together because they're within a month of each other. The dump truck will be split up throughout all the utility funds too. This is just our newest dump truck is a 2003, so I mean it's 22 years old. And we even bought that one used, so it's just time to get some new dump trucks. Then the other 2 are the ones we talked about a little bit in the parks department. The aerator for the parks tractor, and then you see your tractor there, and we will have some resale on that tractor as well. Any questions there?
Do you see this year in the motor pool as an anomalous year? Kind of an anomaly where we have a 52% increase? Or do you foresee that? I mean, because if you look at, if we had another 51% increase over this year's budget, right, if the 875 is approved by council, and we get another 50% increase, then we'd be looking at a $1.2 million year next year.
Right, so I'm gonna say yes, and I think the majority of that is because of the dump truck.
Yeah, that's what I was
That was
looking at,
kinda
is we've got
new, but-
280,000 for that dump truck.
But we are, so the question is do we want to lease everything?
Right.
Or we wanna purchase, and so we're getting to that point now to where all of our equipment is, it's just like our infrastructure, right? Our
Right.
equipment's wearing out.
Yeah.
And it's hard
Right.
decisions.
So next year could be another big year, depending on what equipment.
Yeah, I don't see it being 50%, but yeah, you're right.
We could maybe another 20-30% next year, depending on whether or not there's another snow plow that needs to be replaced, or some other large piece of equipment that we decide to purchase versus lease. Okay.
No. Okay, the last one is the Public Works Department, and that's just the inspectors.
And where we at?
And this one, there's just not a ton to it. They don't have a lot of equipment. So, most of their stuff is either, salaries and those kind of things, or subscriptions and memberships, that kind of stuff. So, our RSI, you can see that, our uniforms, they've all stayed the same. Subscriptions and memberships, they've pretty much stayed the same. The only one adjusted, I think, a little bit was Blue Sticks, and that was just because that's how Blue Sticks are adjusting. They're sent to us. We have to pay per ticket price. With the building slowing down just a little bit, there hasn't been as many Blue Sticks called in. We kind of anticipate that staying the same. So
That's nice of them.
yeah, so that's slowed down a little bit there. And so that's why that one's went down. Travel and trainings just went up. Some because we have a new Blue Sticker, and then there is so many crazy rules coming down the pipe with SWIP. It seems like every day something different. Legislation this year completely changed SWIP on its head. Like everything we thought and everything, the direction we went last year, legislation came in and kind of flipped it on its head. And some of these developers didn't feel like they had the control that they wanted, and so they pushed really hard at the legislature. And now we're kind of seeing them pivot with some of the SWIP things, and so now we're having to go do a bunch of new classes. We actually have to approve some of the SWIP permits ourselves. It used to come in from their engineers, like the engineer would say, hey, here's an approved SWIP plan, and then we would just follow it. Now they're giving it to us, and now we're the ones that have to say, yes, it's approved or not approved, and then have to give them kind of guidance on how to go through that. And so that's where some of our travel and training has went up, as well as some of our engineer training going up as well. So that's where you see the increase there. Office supplies stayed the same. Motor pool actually went down just a little bit. Fuel stayed the same. Computer services. Thank you. That's okay for our engineer. Telephones, the same there. Department supplies, same. Services not classified were right there, and then there was no small equipment they needed this year. I think last year they got some metal detectors and different things, but we didn't have anything there, so that fund has actually decreased just a little bit. So, any questions? you guys. I'm gonna run, sorry. Leave you guys
Yeah,
hanging.
I'll just throw it.
Yeah. I think so.
Maybe you have one, you have something like, yeah, mine in your folder there, you give that today.
There you go.
Okay.
She's leaving
Well,
us.
this packet I gave you will be the police department, the community services, and the police and motor pool. You got your red pen out?
I'm ready.
Just to give you an idea of what we're gonna be talking about, GL accounts. The proposed, or the possible, I guess, police department and CSO budget is about 4.5 million, a little more. And what we're gonna be talking about is about 23% of that. So everything but personnel.
Okay.
And I'll just tell you, my proposal this year does not include the addition of any staff, including another officer. So I've got the metrics I use to determine when that might be, something that we need to take a look at seriously. And as of right now, our staff is doing good. I think some of the projects that are building projects, the developments are not moving as quickly as we anticipated a couple of years ago. Although we love to look at things proactively and want to be ahead of the game. But right now, I am not proposing any additional staff. Okay, just going down through each line item here, beer tax, wages. So all alcohol that's sold in the city has a tax on it. And that tax, a portion of that tax is sent back to us for enforcement purposes. So we use that for equipment and overtime shifts to go out and target DUI and drug activity. So we kind of split that up. This year, our rebate, I'll call it a rebate, tax rebate, was about 18,000. So we split that up between equipment and overtime shifts. So this first line item, beer tax wages, is the overtime shifts that we offer the officers. Next one is highway safety wages. That's money that comes straight from the state. They actually pay our officers to do overtime shifts to go out and target DUIs, seatbelt enforcement, pedestrian safety. Now spread that out throughout the year, kind of concentrating on holidays, and then just give us a few random ones just to throw out for pretty much any weekend. Uniform allowance is, that equates to $100 per month per officer, which covers their uniform, the equipment that they use, and the upkeep. Subscriptions and memberships, and those first three items, by the way, there's no change from this year. Subscriptions and memberships, I've got a projected increase of $750, and that the majority of that is to cover Power DMS, which is our accreditation advisor. We just started the accreditation process. This is really important to us so that we can show our stakeholders, our citizens, that we take it serious, that we're held accountable. So, and this is what this has done for us. Public notices, no change. Travel and training, a small $500 increase there that I just bumped. I believe it was our firearms training facility that we had to bump for $500 a year. Office expense, no change in that. Postage, no change. Motor pool, I'll skip. That's entered by finance down the road, that number. I'll cover the motor pool in a different.
Can I stop you for just a second?
Of course.
So I think everybody's a little bit stumped for just a second on 1054-210. I have an increase of $1250. I don't think that $700. I don't know if I have the updated sheet that I sent out.
Do you have, what's your total?
10,385. But I know that Lexapol went up slightly.
That probably it.
Is that the difference? Okay.
Yeah, so So 1054-210, that includes our policy manual.
Yeah,
The administrators,
Yeah, you got 9,000 on here, it's 8,500.
we pay an organization to manage our policy manual because
Okay.
it is updating constantly with case law, legislative sessions, best practices. So money well spent.
Mhm.
And I think Jamie's right, that my initial number, we actually got the quote from them individually. But slightly.
so maybe I'm the one with the different sheet.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
All of our grants.
Yeah,
Okay,
ours.
I'll shut up then.
All right, motor pool, we'll come back to that. 1054-255, computer services. This is just basically our annual software dues, any connectivity we have with our dispatch and with our records management system. Some of the software that keeps data from our speed trailers, our speed display signs, and our drones. Our in-car camera licenses is a pretty large chunk of that. And just a small increase there of $50. Equipment maintenance, $300 increase, just to cover the increase in cost to keep our stuff maintained. Telephone, no increase there. Donations, about $10,000 is contingent on actually receiving donations. Throughout the year, people come in and, they want to drop off $100 and say, I want this to help pay for a bulletproof vest or something. So that's what that account for. Investigations. The biggest part of this is the $30,000 that's for our license plate reader system. The rest of it is just for any special investigative costs that come up. Like if our detectives ready to do a case and they need to spend, some money to process a piece of evidence or something, it's just a small amount there with a couple $100. So.
Phil had a comment and then I had a question.
Okay.
There are, with any investigative tool, there are always detractors. Right? I know that there have been some commentary again this year about the flock system. From your perspective, much like the question I asked David regarding having parks under public works, on a scale of 1 to 10, as far as deliverables that we had anticipated from the flock system, how would you rate it? 1 being it's useless, 10 being it's the greatest thing since dirt was created.
I think from what we have seen, the benefits that we've gotten from it to this point, I'd say 7.
Okay.
Now, when that big incident happens that we're talking life and death,
Right.
It's now a 12.
Not 12.
Right?
So you think it's still worth the expenditure?
Because I can insure.
Both of you think that? Okay. And I don't want to get into specific incidents because there's obvious reasons not to go, talk publicly about specific incidences, but you feel like you've had incidents in how long have we, 1 year now, right? We're into the 2nd year now. That there have been times and situations where having that has proved very beneficial.
Yeah, I don't mind, without giving specifics, I don't mind giving some examples. A homicide within 4 hours, it helped us get.
Really, the flock system did.
Yeah. An aggravated assault, McDonald's, somebody sitting at the drive-through picking up their Big Mac. Kid got out, pistol whipped him in the head, sidearm, and jumped in a vehicle that all we knew was the color and the shape. And we had those kids in custody within a short amount of time because the flock system identified them. A fugitive that ran from one of our officers at a high rate of speed. Happened so quick, couldn't get a license plate. just knew when and where, we identified that.
So you're able to pull the plate off flock and get them.
And that's all Flock gives us is a picture.
Right.
Of the back of the car and the license plate.
Right.
We have a database that we actually get the information from.
Right.
The state DMV,
Sure.
to where new people are. Flock just gives us a picture. So, doesn't have any personal information associated with it.
I think that's, I just knew there was some question about it, so I wanted to make sure we were having a discussion too about it and not glazing over it, being that that had been brought up. So is that a yearly subscription? Is that how that works?
So the cameras, we do not own cameras.
Okay.
We lease the cameras. So that's a $3,000 per year per camera that when they need updated, they get updated. When they break, they fix them.
Mhm.
So it's essentially their equipment that they update, keep up and update it with the latest, greatest software, everything. So it's a lease.
Okay, so and in leasing the cameras, that allows the service of calling them and saying we need the image of this, or
So
is that on top of that?
They are only over the equipment,
Okay,
the data, the storage, everything is ours. We own the
okay,
data.
so that
That's-
is, you guys access that,
Yeah.
that's yours, okay. That makes
And
sense.
if I remember right, the data is only kept for a short period of time. It's like 30 days.
30 days.
30 days, and so,
After 30 days, if it's not part of a case that's been determined to be evidence, it drops off and it's unrecoverable.
Okay,
And the other thing to know that it gives us as well is access to other cameras in the area by having that subscription.
Right.
So that way we can work together with other agencies on certain cases, so.
To that point, I mean, we have 10 cameras, but our subscription gives us access to, I'm just gonna throw out 30,000 cameras nationwide.
okay,
However many there are, there's a lot.
Yeah.
So just an incident that I know of, an officer was shot in the line of duty in, I believe it was Georgia. That agency found the suspect as it passed a flock camera in Texas. Were able to arrest him. Otherwise.
Yeah.
It helps things happen very rapidly.
you can see with Amber Alerts and similar kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where it could be helpful.
that's where that immediately went into my head with that sort of missing person or.
Mhm.
Any other questions on the flock system?
I don't have any nope,
Well, thank you for those. I know there's some questions. We've also got, the presentation planned for council meeting next week.
Well, in today's day and age, there's always concern about privacy, right?
Yep.
And data and what's being kept and stored and, I think all of us could probably keel over if we realize just how much data is out there about us from our cell phones and our
I was just
computers
gonna say, I think that's the funniest thing
And
is we're all like.
and our credit cards and everything else, and how much
Yeah.
those data pools know about us.
Yeah.
But we want to be cognizant of those concerns and make sure that we're doing everything we can to limit those concerns while providing a beneficial service to law enforcement. Ooh,
I've got some today, so.
I would just like to say, I appreciate the fact that our community has maybe some better tools than evidence anymore. Anyway.
Yeah, we agree. It helps us feel a lot better about doing our job. Every success, we go home. That was a good day. Okay, following investigations, 1054-350 forensic services. That's an annual fee that we pay the countywide CSI group that handles all the crime scene processing. Every agency in the county subscribes to their services. And that 45,863 is our portion of their operating cost and their personnel cost. The traffic school, that's zeroed out. We don't do that anymore. That's gone online, which is why we don't do it anymore. Youth court, we have a Tri-City Youth Court that we administer here in North Ogden that covers Pleasant and Harrisville as well. That youth court generates revenue from the defendants that appear, and that revenue covers 100% of the costs of youth court. Canine, that's $1,000 a year that we put aside for our drug dog. That covers food, any training aids, vet fees, anything that comes up with any other, just like pet dog. Strike Force and SWAT, that also is an annual due that we pay for the services of those two countywide agencies. The Strike Force is handles all the drug investigations, and the SWAT, which is them just complete them for any tactical needs. Those amounts are generated from how much we use them and also our population. There's a formula that goes into it. Department supplies, that $1,900 increase, and most of that I'm going to contribute to our attempt to do better at rewarding our officers. So when we have a recognition, whether it's presenting them with a medal or doing something like that, we're trying to do better at it. Homeland Security, that is really just a contingency fund that we just have just in case. I give you an example. The riots that we had a few years ago, we were called to go and help. We didn't have the equipment to do it, so we dipped into the Homeland Security account to equip those officers with some riot gear. So it's just a just in case fund. Miscellaneous, $12,000 increase there this year, and this has probably changed on January as well. But the $12,000 mental health, that's one of the line items in there, is we actually just got a $39,000 check from the state. It was a grant that Lieutenant Child facilitated. He worked on that for several months to get that. That's going to cover this year's and next year's costs for our mental health services for our staff. Small equipment.
So this 12,000 is showing the expenditure for
Yeah.
those services, and on another line, we'll have the revenue
have-
from the grant.
Because
covering it.
it'll straddle 2 years. So we'll have to, yeah.
I'm just gonna make a note here that it's covered by grant.
And were you still thinking we'd create a separate GL for that?
Yeah.
You did?
I don't have
Okay.
another sheet.
Oh, okay. Small equipment, you'll see there's a $73,000 decrease from this year. Most of that is this year we had a radio upgrade that was mandatory, $50,000 radio software. And $40,000 body camera upgrade. So those have been done this year. We won't have to do it again. That radio, Lieutenant Child was over that radio upgrade. It's been fun, right?
Something like that.
We contribute all that. The state has updated the entire statewide system, and they changed providers, so our Motorola radios needed some upgrading to be compatible. Just another note on that small equipment. Second line from the bottom is the live scan digital fingerprint scanner. So we are still doing ink and roll fingerprints. Yeah. The live scan is a digital fingerprint machine that it tells us if it's a good fingerprint, if it's a bad fingerprint, and we can have it done really quick. What it also does for us is it has we can send a set of fingerprints to BCI instantaneously. So we can do criminal histories, backgrounds instantaneously, where now with the ink and roll it takes about 2 weeks. So that machine with software, about $10,000. And then following this year, this is a partially a one-time expense once we get the machine, and then the software subscription, I believe, was about 2,000 annually. To be able to do that. And we're gonna help offset some of that with some revenue that we're gonna now start, because we can now do criminal histories. So we can have citizens come in and we can do that for them. It's pretty common for employment, even some educational institutions. Beer tax expense, that's the other half of the beer tax. That's for the equipment that we purchased with that. Next, victim advocate. She has a $5,100, it's not changing from this year, $5,100 GL here just for office supplies and things she needs to do her thing. We get about 32,000 annually in grant money to cover her salary, part of her salary.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't have my glasses, so I have to concentrate
I'm just
really
having-
hard at these
I'm
papers.
just having
Oh.
fun with it. The emergency shelter and transportation.
Yes.
We've only had this victim advocate for a year or so now, right?
6 years.
Is it 6 years?
So we first applied for this grant and got our first victim advocate in 2017.
Do you find that $1,000 has been enough annually for emergency transportation and housing?
Yes.
Okay. That's my
Now,
question.
that doesn't mean there might be one incident that we have to use.
But generally speaking, that is providing for the needs that we've been coming across.
Yeah. 1054-703 Highway Safety Office. This is state money that they send us for equipment that we can utilize for DUI enforcement. So typically anything that helps us get evidence that'll help the prosecution is what we use this for. So we'll use it for body camera updates or replacements. Portable breathalyzer test machines, in-car cameras, things like that. The next one, the JAG block grant, is a federal grant that we get every year, and that is for any law enforcement equipment in general. We can't supplant anything that we're already paying for annually, but we typically have some needs that we can utilize that for a couple $1,000s to fulfill. Bulletproof vest grant. Our vests are good for 5 years. We rotate them out every 5 years. And this grant pays for half of that cost. So typically we rotate 4 vests out every year. And each vest is about $1,400, and the grant we get reimburses us for half of that.
What happens to the old vests? Is they rotated out, do they destroy it?
The officer typically inherits them and might utilize them and
Personal life.
yeah, or we take them to the range.
Or paintball.
Paintball.
I was just curious.
Okay, that's the police budget. Any questions on that?
Question on training, how are you, this is just a personal question, are you doing range time or how are you? Whatever.
So our training, we're required 40 hours of training a year per officer. And obviously that could encompass a lot of
Different things.
So of that 40 hours, we're mandated that 16 of it is sexual assault, autism awareness, de-escalation, arrest control.
Arrest control.
So 16 hours has to be strictly towards those. We have to qualify annually with our firearms, so that's another about 10 hours. And then aside from that, we have anything that helps us obtain certifications, leadership classes. A lot of the officers have a specific, like, not need, but interest, you know, drug recognition, DUI enforcement, child abuse investigations, sexual assault investigations. Detectives obviously have a different skill set that they need to work on. So all kinds of stuff. And just throw this out there. With our new facility, we actually have room to train. So we're hoping we might actually save some money. We're gonna save some money. We can't tell you how much, because I don't know. We'll see. But we're gonna bring trainings to us. Right now, we're typically going to Salt Lake, Utah County to go to training. Obviously, there's per diem associated with that. We're bringing these trainings here to our building, where a lot of times if we host it, they'll give us free seats. Don't have a per diem, so there could be some savings. We'll see. Okay, our community services is we have 2 officers that do our animal control enforcement and ordinance violations. And this is their budget. There is one change in their budget from this year, and that is in 2 changes, sorry. Small equipment, I've added a ductless fume hood. What that is a place where they can work on evidence that's been submitted and be safe from any particles. So we all have heard of the fentanyl crisis. We're taking in a lot of fentanyl, and people are dying from just handling it. So this is just a place where they can actually handle these substances without at least give them some protection from exposure. The second place where there's a bit of a change is the animal shelter. That's 1057,370. And we have really no control over that, other than the less animals we take to the shelter, the lower our cost is. But there's a $10,400 increase from this year to next year in that cost. $20,000 of that amount is a bond payment that we subscribed to, and we went in with all but 2 cities in the county to build this shelter and utilize it. That bond, it was a 20-year bond, and I think it's within a couple of years we can pay it off. Other than that, the other items in their budget is relatively insignificant. So, any questions on the CSO budget? Hey, police motor pool. My projection in that, the only account I have anything with this is the capital equipment. I believe our Tyrell does the fuel and parts, so I don't have that for you.
Yeah, we looked at the fuel and parts, where we're at this year, and we think we're gonna come in slightly under that 116, so we just left it,
Okay, good.
especially with fuel costs.
That sounds like fuel and parts. That's good. Good. Capital equipment, $100,000 increase. So our cars are on a 5-year rotation. And this year, 4 cars fell in that rotation. This year, next year, 5. So that's the addition of 1 car. So the difference is not just the 1 car, it's that of the 5 cars next year, 4 of them are marked patrol cars. There's about a $20,000 difference between a marked patrol car and an unmarked chief car. So
Just that much.
that's all the cost of the equipment. Our patrol officers drive vehicles that are built for patrol work, so they have extra safety features and doors that open differently, seats that are shaped differently, alternators that handle different loads, engines that, suspensions that are different. So that's part of the difference in the car, the cost of the car, and then there's about a $10,000 difference in the cost of the equipment that goes in the car. So that's the $100,000 difference in that. So, any questions on motor pool? That's it.
Well, thank you.
It was
Thank you.
good. It was
Yeah.
boring, but it's good. No, it's not boring. It's good.
It wasn't exciting.
How do I say this?
It was
There wasn't a
informative.
lot of like, how can I question this?
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. I like being boring when it comes to budgets because.
Trying to pull up.
Yeah, anything to add,
Because Phil?
Well, we have, well, next is committee and staff comment.
Okay, I figured that was next. I knew we were kind of there. And I wanted us to kind of formalize.
So
our
I'm
recommendations,
questioning
but
this, if I'm going to present, does somebody have really good notes to,
I've been writing down, yeah,
That's
so
good,
that,
because-
but right now, I think we'll decide on our actual recommendations. I think that we should take a minute and do that.
I had 5 things that I wrote down as possible recommendations from the
Okay.
committee that we seem to discuss and focus on. The first one was recommending to council that parks be kept under public works as it is now,
Yes,
rather than reverting to previous systems where we had a separate Parks and Rec department with its own department head. It seems to be, from what I can gather, that having parks under public works is an effective system.
it's,
And I think there's some cost savings that goes along with that.
well, and, I mean, even outside of cost savings, having both of those working intertwined can
Mhm.
only benefit both public works and parks, rather than trying
What
to
do you think,
separate them
Chris?
when they're doing.
I'm good. I support that.
The second one I had was encouraging council to fund the street light installations for those 2 or 3 dark, and I've got these all written down, Chris, I can give them to you if we all agree.
I have a page where I wrote recommendations.
Okay.
And if I have anything different, I'll bring it up, but.
Okay. So the street light installs, it seemed reasonable, it wasn't a huge expense, but it's one of those things that could be easily looked at and said, yeah, we don't really need that. But you think about the intersections that they named off, those are very dark intersections that are fairly busy intersections. The third recommendation that I wrote down, it's not really a budgetary, but it deals with a budgetary question, and that is get the flash vote on recreation subsidy done. Get that survey out to the community ASAP so that we can get a feel. So council can have a feel, council and mayor can have a feel for the community's sentiment on taxpayer subsidy for recreational.
I have that down too, but I have it a little more in depth. I think that we can make it a budget like it is.
Oh,
Because
sure.
I also think including some of the discussions, like adding it to the bill, an option,
Sure.
because where we had such a good discussion, we also came up with some possible solutions to.
Sure.
So I think that would be good. I had Susan Kilborn, I know she's kind of left our committee, but she is still messaging, and I think she has great input. One thing she asked is, just a possible when we're asking for donations, because I think that should be included in the flash vote, if people would be willing to donate. But one of her thoughts was if there were specific areas that donation could go to. And I don't know if that makes it complicated, I don't know, but it's worth asking and looking into how, moving forward with that would be, but.
Yeah.
I think that there needs to be a way to easily contribute and money. suggestion is that's included, since we're all getting a utility bill.
Mhm.
You wanna put on several categories, and maybe they change every month. If you wanna give $1 to the rec department, or you wanna, whatever.
To the swimming,
To the
to swim lessons, to running.
Whatever it
Yeah,
happens to be.
however that
it happens
works.
to be, I think you allow people to fund what they wanna fund.
Mhm.
So we've talked about that a little bit in the past about QR codes and different things to have available, only because we, as, right, as citizens, we are moving less and less towards writing checks and paying
Mhm.
online and having those abilities. I would have to talk with Express Bill Pay to see if those are possibilities when they pay online, because it is so automatic. There's also, like, we do a lot with direct pay where we initiate the ACH withdrawal. That's becoming heavily used. And then we also have Lockbox, which is sent, so it's automatically processed. And then I don't know how to catch those. So there's some nuances with the
Yeah,
utility bill to be
Because
able
if
to
you do the
donate.
utility bill, they get big.
But like QR codes, like on the bill, because like the city has like Square accounts. I want to say we have another one. Bryce can help me out with that. Square, and I think we have another.
And maybe it's a once a year
And it could be a once a year
opt-in, where in
donation.
January or December, you get the QR code and you go in and you opt in.
So many years ago, like
I know.
right when I first started with the city, many years ago, right? Over 10 years ago, we actually had that option on the utility bill, and I never saw it utilized. And we actually did more checks back then than we do now. And so I think just to have, I mean, I like the idea, it's just, I think that we need to do more than just a utility bill.
Yeah. I mean, I think that mostly for us, we would be recommending that we'd like to see a way that recreation is self-funded, but there are ways for people to donate so that youth who may not have the opportunities can have that
That's great.
opportunity. Does that seem right?
It does.
And then,
And there are people that wanted to contribute to the flag project,
Mhm.
make it easy
Yes,
to make that happen.
yeah, yeah.
And it's not now. That's
Sure.
what I'm saying. There is no real way, and I'm sorry, walking into this building, you gotta be dedicated to wanna get here, because it's not an easy place to get to.
Especially right now, yeah, I get that, yeah.
yeah, I think recommending that that's something we've discussed, and we think a flash vote is a good way to get a feel on that, and some of our ideas were, funding throughout there, but I think, employees and you guys would ultimately come up with the right
Idea.
way to, I'm struggling.
I'm
with
also
the-
throwing a suggestion
How
out.
to implement it.
We have the North Ogden Magazine, put an article in there each day, a different department or concerned person for, the ones to talk about Parks and Rec, and if you feel like you'd like to contribute $5 to the parks this year, or to the baseball program, or whatever it is, here's how you do it. And that changes so that it gets community focused.
I think even when we, sorry.
I was gonna say, I think we would want to make sure that they understood it was a donation for those that can't afford to participate. It's not just hey, the city doesn't want to pay for our parks, so we want you to give an extra $5. No, the city's we're maintaining the parks, we're doing these things, but there are kids who can't afford to play football,
Mhm.
for whom the experience could be life-changing, right? Or participating in baseball or basketball or whatever. Would you donate to parks to that special fund to help give them a scholarship opportunity?
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Brett.
It goes along with what Phil just said, so I probably am repeating, but I think as far as the flash vote goes, we need to find out first if there is any interest in people wanting to donate. Then if there is what is deemed enough interest, then it can be decided how they donate. I think excuse me, trying to put too much all at once. I think we need to start with, is there an interest?
I agree. Yeah, we need to find out, if people, if that is interesting or something that people would be willing to do. Because come up, I think, with a lot of ideas of how to implement it in different ways, even people signing up their children at that time. Would you like to donate a couple dollars extra for, I think of like schools, when you pay for lunch, they always ask for extra, or if I have leftover, would you like to just donate it to help pay another? So, I think implementing it will be easy. We just need to find out if that's an interest. But I think as far as recommendations go, you've brought it up before, but recreation being self-funding, how can we do that? And how can we make sure that those who may not have the opportunity can still have the opportunity, what that looks like somehow in flash vote.
The next thing that I had was have a robust discussion about, but recommend to keep flock. From the examples that the chief and Lieutenant Childs gave us, I would feel comfortable recommending that we keep recommending to council that they consider keeping flock on board.
I have a comment on that one too.
Go ahead, Brenda.
My beginning issue with flock was how it was done. It was not done in an open council meeting. It was done in a closed council meeting. So I think that people kind of feel like it was pushed under the door to us. I think if it was an open discussion, whether it's an article in the magazine, whether there's a explanation at a city council meeting, if nothing else, then when people ask the question, they can be referred to that city council meeting to understand exactly what it is. Because I just kind of feel like there wasn't a lot of open communication on it, and that people may be a little bit confused as to what it is.
I 100% agree with you. I didn't know what it was, why all of a sudden it was being put. I hadn't heard anything about it. Having the chief explain it a little bit more, it makes sense. And I'm like, okay. But yeah, so having them have a good discussion, I think, in explaining it instead of, it might help ease a lot of concerns that I've heard. Go ahead.
I agree with you 100%. I can speak to, from my perspective, though, why it was initially done in a closed meeting. And that is when you're talking about certain police tactics and tools and things that may be implemented, they aren't necessarily talked about in public initially, because you don't want the bad guys knowing what it is you're going to do. And then that was the thought process behind the initial meetings being in a closed meeting, because we weren't sure whether or not we were going to try it. And again, it's kind of a tactical thinking. I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that that was the thinking that we had at the time when we had those meetings. But I certainly see your point, yeah.
And I understand that now because it's been explained to me. But that's part of my wondering, is if people have questions about it, if it was explained to them how it came about and why it came about and exactly what it is, I think there would be less questions.
Maybe a video could be done by police chief and mayor.
Especially where we're going into the second year.
The second year.
There's,
It may be beneficial to have a little video done that we can put out there on all the different media availabilities that we can point people to, just as you said, Brenda.
Yeah, I think that would be great.
That here's why we looked at it, here's the results that we're seeing, and here's why we think we ought to keep it.
all right, so how do we want our recommendation?
I have one more recommendation.
Well, let's finish the flock one. How do we
Oh.
want that to say? Because I think the robust discussion is good, but should we add that,
I think there needs to
Based
be
on our-
a better explanation, discussion in a public forum or an
Yes,
article.
yes.
And Chief
where
mentioned that he's talking about it in next week's meeting.
He did say they've got a
He's got a
presentation.
presentation on it that he's giving, and I don't know what that presentation is, but I hope it's a robust presentation. And he gives some examples of the success.
I like that word, sorry, it makes me laugh
Which
every
one?
time I use it.
Robust?
Yes, I'm such a child. I'm just like, okay.
We must
It's,
robust.
it's a good word, and it fits, but it just makes me giggle a little, and was trying really hard not to, but used it enough times that it made me giggle. Okay.
Number 5.
The last one I had was to recommend that council bring us into the 21st century with the live scan fingerprint machine.
This is off subject, and it's just a personal thing that just really annoys me. But we have these things like the digital fingerprint, the flock camera. God, I feel like they're just after us. They know that these things are important, and so they can just charge a fortune for it. Just a personal pet peeve.
Noted. I agree with you. They know we need it, they know we're doing it, so they're gonna charge us a lot. Okay.
Those were the ones I had.
But it's no worse than we need cars but like the legislature changes the rules on inspections and whatever. And the trickle down effect is now it's a budget item for us to pay whatever.
I agree, and I don't like that either, so.
And I don't like the fact that my summer season's here and it cost me $140 to fill up my truck. I mean.
Oh, exactly.
Fuel's gone up almost $1.50 in the last 40 days.
Well, and if what happened last weekend continues, it's gonna get worse. Do you understand?
Yes, I do. All
All
right,
We're
so
probably out of time.
we've got 5 recommendations. I think those are good. I didn't have anything extra. My biggest one was the recreation and the discussion.
So when am I gonna supposedly present
This
this?
will be next Tuesday night, and if you can't, put it, really, just let us know if it's not gonna work. Because Phil and I and Brenda are there at all of them.
Just a second.
You like that cinnamon? That's good, huh?
Cinnamon's a bird.
I won't find
It's
it.
really anything
No,
cinnamon.
it's not good to be balanced.
Like just the color of it.
It was, I know. But I love that brand. I buy them all the time.
That's what, 6 to 8, basically.
Depends on the
Depending on
day.
what's on the.
But I was gonna say, if we can get get it at the beginning, then, you could give it, and I think that would be the best time anyway, so that they can
Yeah.
incorporate it in the discussion as the night moves on.
Okay.
They'll
Have it
have
as part of
that.
the consent agenda when
Mhm.
presentations are done.
I'm gonna say yes. I'll let you know if it's not gonna happen.
Okay. Well, we
I just
appreciate
need
it.
good bullet points to talk from.
Yes. And if it's, again, if you find me can't, we've got 3 of us that are always sitting there.
Okay.
And Brenda loves to
Be happy.
present, so.
And it's good.
I will be on Zoom again, but I have no problem telling them what I think. They won't like it.
Love that. All right, I think that's everything.
Perfect.
So 2 weeks, we'll have the next set of
We'll have the
Yellow
next
shirt.
set.
yellow sheets.
We don't have any more yellow sheets in 2
This
weeks.
is it?
This is it. So in 2 weeks, if we're having the work session as the schedule says on the 7th, we'll be talking about other.
We're talking about tentative budget at that point.
The 14th is when that one needs to be passed, but on the 7th is just kind of finishing discussions and hammering things out, fund balances.
So we can do a final one, and I also think that we should look at if we still want to meet every 2 weeks, if that's necessary, once the budget's done. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
I don't know that we need to meet so frequently. Maybe we can move to every 3 weeks, depending. We can discuss that next time though.
It may be after that, that the next meeting we have is after the tentative budget is passed.
And that would
And
be,
we can see whether or not council will or will not be considering any kind of a tax increase to balance the budget. Then we can, if they are, then we can chime in on that. If they're not,
yeah,
we can, and the other piece that we haven't talked about is any kind of a cost of living increase. Putting out any kind of a recommendation for, we can, recommending the city do a 2%, a 3%, a 95%, whatever. That we look at that, because I think the city's considering 3, is that right?
The last I heard is, are you talking about salaries?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Three-
The last I heard was
three-ish.
3-ish.
Yeah. Not guaranteed per person, but overall a 3-ish, and then
That's what they. talked
depending
about.
on the
Mhm.
individual, yeah.
okay, so, you know what we'll talk about next time, and then we can go from there. I appreciate it. Appreciate everybody coming.
Move to adjourn.
Thanks.
Bye, Brenda.
everybody. Bye,
Bye,
Brenda.
Mayor.
Hi, thanks for putting up with me.
Are they still on?
No, they signed off a little bit ago.
They
so-
probably, driving down, they probably ran out of